Hello, welcome to Industry Reactions. Industry Reactions is a weekly briefing on industry events, changes, and future trends that impact your business. We're your hosts, Rick Honer and Mark Friedel from ChemPoint. You can find Industry Reactions on YouTube, LinkedIn, and as a podcast. For those watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and smash that like button. We plan on discussing issues that impact the global industry and help you uncover new opportunities. We hope this will provide market intelligence that will keep you ahead of changing conditions.
All right, and we're going to start this week where we left off last week, and that was a update on the ChemTool fire situation in Rockton, Illinois. As we mentioned, there was a big fire and explosion, and as you can see from this picture, the ChemTool facility looks pretty well destroyed. They finally got that fire under control. They let it burn out kind of mid to late last week. Not sure what the plans are long term, but obviously it caused pretty big disruption to the local community, and it's going to cause disruptions to really the industry, specific to what they produce. And I think it's mostly grease products. ChemTool is owned by Lubrizol Corporation. Thankfully, this thing has been under control. There's been no casualties as a result of this. I think everyone got out safe, but still a pretty major event for our industry.
Yeah, it's good to hear the injuries were limited or none in that. You never want to see it. I do think it's kind of interesting. I've watched that company ChemTool over time. They've really grown fairly quickly, and then now under Lubrizol, they become a pretty large part within that lubricant space, especially in that grease space. All right, let's move into an area we've talked a lot about this year, which is pricing. So Texas refineries seems like they're doing pretty well. After the hit that they took in February with the winter storm, specifically to refineries, prices were soaring as they struggle to keep up with demand. When the pandemic hit, especially demand for packaging because of delivered goods, et cetera, was through the roof, and that sustained some of the demand changes elsewhere. And so the packaging need has continued to be strong, and supplies have gone down. And with that, prices have soared. And companies like Lyondell and Westlake that are right in the middle of that have really benefited, and you can see it on their earnings calls that they've seen a pretty significant positive impact. Even though their volumes are off, that pricing has helped their books quite a bit.
Yeah, I can only imagine that Q2 earnings calls are going to be very good and very strong as well. Not only you're getting this benefit, but you're also getting the year-over-year effect from some of the strong downturns that we saw due to the pandemic.
And I think, if I look at that Houston area, which is so dependent on this, I mean, this is such a need for that area, right? They rely on it. And so these prices, though they can be tough elsewhere, I think that that area, the Houston area specifically, is really benefiting.
Yeah, and from a macro standpoint, we've been kind of watching oil prices. It's been, now solidly over $75 a barrel, I think closer to 75. People are predicting it's going to get closer to 100 by the end of the year. Well, that could have a slowdown effect on sort of the macroeconomic conditions. As things get too expensive, it could become prohibitive for people to do things. All right, and we will move into the update on rail traffic. This is an update for the week ending June 16th. No surprise, things continue to tick up. The volume has increased 16% from 2020 during this the 4-week period ending mid-June here, and it's up almost 1% from the volumes in 2019. So it seems to be like 2019 is a benchmark year, since 2020 was so strange from a demand standpoint. So rail traffic is not only exceeding 2020 as we'd expect, but also now 2019.
That's good to see. I think it's been creeping along kind of even with 2019, but now it looks like they've actually gained on 2019. So that's good to see. All right, let's talk about new products and company announcements. Probably the first story, a very interesting one, and another topic or story related to sustainability in our industry, which is good to see. So Nestle and Lyondell have partnered. Nestle will be providing a feedstock that's based 100%. It's 100% bio-based. That will be a feedstock for LyondellBasell. Now they're going to use LyondellBasell's Germany plant to turn the raw materials into polymers. And so for that European region, at least, you've got a pretty strong player in Lyondell in the plastic space and using 100% bio and renewable sources by Nestle. So really great partnership. It's good to see this in our industry.
Yeah, for sure. I think we talked about Lyondell kind of launching this product group not that long ago, maybe in the last month or two. So it's interesting that they're actually making progress on it. They've found a partner for some of the feedstocks.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of renewable energy, well, the EV market continues to be strong. Electric vehicles and lithium is one of the key components that are tied to that from a battery perspective. So Schlumberger and Panasonic are now partnering. They've reached an agreement, and it's the agreement is really looking at how to validate an optimization of this new lithium extraction process, which is what people are doing more and more these days. So I believe Schlumberger has a new process at a pilot plant for some of the mines in Nevada, and they're going to be partnering up with Panasonic to make sure the optimization and validation of how this new extraction process will be validated.
Huh, that's interesting to see. Schlumberger, I've only ever thought of them in the oil space, and so to see them involved in lithium seems like a pretty significant shift.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, a quick story around Amyris. They've sounds like they're going to be acquiring a company called Olica. Olica, I wasn't aware, but they are actually a company that's in hand sanitizers and provide hand sanitizing type raw materials. So Amyris has clearly acquired them to bolster their portfolio in terms of sanitization and hand sanitizers. The thing that's surprising to me is I kind of thought the hand sanitizer boom was already over, and I'm wondering, just in the back of my mind, whether this is too little, too late. But I don't know any of the details.
All right, another big M&A story is in the pigments segment. Heubach and SK Capital are partnering up to buy the Clariant Pigments business for nearly a billion in a cash deal, which I think is contingent on Clariant hitting certain financial targets before the close throughout 2021. I guess I would infer that the transaction is not going to close until the early part of 22. It values them at a nearly 11 times earnings multiple, just kind of looking back at the last 12 months of earnings. So this is a pretty significant shift in or acquisition in the pigment segment. I think there's roughly 3,000 employees, and sales associated with this portfolio is close to €1 billion annualized. So pretty big move. I'm assuming SK will take a certain percentage ownership in Heubach, and this will fall into the Heubach portfolio of pigments.
Yeah, that's it's seen. Although I'm less knowledgeable about the total size, but that seems like a pretty big consolidation within that pigment space.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about food and food ingredients. Kerry announced that they were selling their consumer foods business, which focuses on meats mostly within the UK and Ireland, to Pilgrim's Pride, and that transaction is about $1 billion total with a B. Kerry was also in the news this week in announcement of their acquisition of Niacet, a business that we're very familiar with. And in the whole, the thing that's interesting to me is both of those moves signal a move further upstream in the value chain for Carry. We're getting closer to the raw materials and maybe less emphasis on the end product or end food, which for me, it looks like a good move and very interesting.
Yeah, Carry's been very active. We've talked about them on this podcast several times in the last 6 months. They've been very active. They're making a lot of moves. All right, and our final story today, Distrupol, who's an affiliate of GPD Companies, which is owned by One Rock. So One Rock's back in the news again. Distrupol is acquiring Latrup Chemicals. Haven't heard of them in the past. They're a sort of niche polymer distributor in Scandinavia. So I think it's going to be a nice little bolt-on for that Distrupol business.
Yeah, as you may or may not know, One Rock was involved in acquisition of that Nexeo Plastics business just recently acquired the Distrupol and now Latrup. So clearly trying to consolidate some polymer distribution networks. Probably similar to the moves that we're seeing with the name is escaping me. We just talked about them earlier. SK Capital.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yep, SK and One Rock continue to make a lot of investment in our industry. All right, well, that's it for this week's edition of Industry Reactions. We will return next week with a fresh batch of industry reactions. Until then, stay safe.
All right, take care.